Better get those tickets early at Tape Head Company, Chester's Drawers, General Store, Body and Soul in Provo, and all Salt Palace ticket outlets. At last, Chicago in the Salt Palace, July 17th.
KRSP presents The Doors.
Yeah, I guess you're right. You've got to take it as it comes. Door music, preceded by People Are Strange and Break On Through. For the next hour, for this entire hour, we're going to be hearing some Doors music and going to rap a little bit about the Doors, complete with commercials.
There are many places in this old world the average person just doesn't get to see because they don't have the proper vehicle to get them there. Pacer Sport and Cycle 865 South State can provide the two-wheel way at a great savings. The new hard-to-get models are coming soon, so the used dirt bikes in the 70s, 71 demonstrator models have to go. Many different bikes to choose from. Most prices have been cut to cost. See the other side of the world on a bike from Pacer Sport and Cycle 865 South State. Get a Mako and ride a winner.
Like the Mothers of Invention, another Los Angeles group that is much concerned with personal freedom, particularly in the realm of sensation, the Doors. Although the older generation tends to be offended by vocalist Jim Morrison's overt sexuality and libidinous frenzy, his songs and his performances are the product of a carefully thought-out philosophy. Even the title of the group was selected not as a put-on or a put-down, but as an expression of outlook. There are things that are known, the English mystical poet William Blake had written, and things that are unknown. In between are doors. Novelist Aldous Huxley had adapted the phrase for a book on experiments with mescaline. Morrison shorted Huxley's title, The Doors of Perception, to The Doors. But the concept was there. There's a whole region of images and feelings inside us, Jim Morrison has said, that rarely are given outlet in everyday life. And when they do come out, they can take perverse forms. Everyone, when he sees it, recognizes the same thing in himself. It's a recognition of forces that rarely see the light of day. Appearing on stage in black leather jacket, skin-tight black vinyl pants, Jim Morrison gave the rather vivid, visceral, as well as violent oral expression to the repressed feelings. The more civilized we get on the surface, he says, in almost Freudian terms, the more the other forces make their plea. We appeal to the same human needs as classical tragedy and early Southern blues. Think of it as a seance in an environment which has become hostile to life, cold, restrictive. People feel they are dying in a bad landscape. People gather together in a seance in order to invoke, palliate, and drive away the bad. Through chanting, singing, dancing, and music, they come to cure an illness, to bring harmony back into the world. Morrison's extreme personal drives keep the group together. They did. Morrison says, I think the highest and the lowest points are the important ones. I want freedom to try everything. I want to experience everything at least once. And he explains, I'm interested in anything about revolt, disorder, chaos, especially activity that seems to have no meaning. It seems to me to be the road toward freedom. External revolt is the way to bring about internal freedom. Rather than starting inside, I start outside and reach the mental through the physical. Those are some quotes from Jim Morrison, the late Jim Morrison. They've had a number of albums out. I had the opportunity of meeting Jim Morrison once when People Are Strange was a big hit. And part of the lyrics are, nobody knows your name, you know, people are strange. So I called him Sky. So, hi, Sky, how are you? He said, no, that's another guy. That's another guy. Personable, shocking, kind of scary. Made a lot of folks raise their eyebrows.
Hello?
Hello.
Who's this, Robbie?
Yeah.
Robbie Krieger.
Right.
Michael G. Kavanaugh. K Radio. Want to rap with you for a few minutes and, find out what the Doors are doing, where their heads are at, and in anticipation of your great concert coming up.
Great.
Let's talk about the Doors in the early days, say back in, 1966?
Okay.
Is that when the whole thing started?
Pretty much, yeah. Last part of 65 and 66.
Mm-hmm. How did you all get together?
Oh, well, it's hard to say.
You just kind of fell in, and that was it?
Yeah, it just kind of all happened at once, you know.
Uh-huh.
And, I don't know. We just all had the same thing in our heads, and we all got together.
And everybody, compliments everybody else.
Yeah,
And you end
I
up with a
think
good
so.
sound. Well, 1967 was Light My Fire. That turned out to be the #1 song for the entire year. Who was, responsible for that? Where did that come from, Light My Fire?
Light my fire.
You remember
Well,
it.
I don't know. It's hard to say. But, that was the year when all those fires were all the Detroit fires
Yeah.
were lit, and
Yeah.
that seemed to be the thing that year, you know.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that had anything to do with it or anything, but it was just in the air that year, I think.
Fire was a big word.
Yeah, I mean, it could have easily been earth, air, water, or something like that.
Yeah, one of the natural signs.
Uh-huh.
Well, how about Soft Parade? Was Soft Parade a seller for you? Did that really make it? It's kind of
The
a
album, you mean, or the song?
Yeah, the album, the whole album.
Oh, yeah, that was, I think it sold just as well as any of the other albums.
Dallas, Fort Worth, frontier towns. We've got the Cotton Bowl, we've got Mink Stoles, we find black gold in the earth. We've got buildings tall, and we say you all will have a ball in Dallas, Fort Worth.
Frontier Airlines will give you 6 hours in Dallas, a great breakfast going, and even a greater dinner coming back, and have you home in time for a good night's rest. You can leave Salt Lake City at 8 a.m. and be in Dallas by noon. After your business is finished, we'll have you home again at 9:46 p.m. Commute the easy way with Frontier, the only through service from Salt Lake City to Dallas.
They are frontier towns. There's no denying they are frontier towns. So let's go flying. We'll take you up, but won't let you down. Dallas, Fort Worth, frontier towns. Chris, KRSP. Ooh, a groovy place in Salt Lake City.
John Denver.
Sunrise, open up your eyes.
KRSP and the ASUU Entertainment Committee presents John Denver in concert July 22nd.
Country roads, take me home.
John Denver in the U of U Special Event Center.
Follow me where I go, what I do, I know.
Also special added attraction Hamilton, Joe Frank, and Reynolds.
Don't pour your love out on me, baby. If you do, then I think to maybe I'll just lay me down right for 100 years. Talk of poems and prayers and promises and things that we believe in.
KRSP KRSP presents John Denver and Hamilton Joe Franken Reynolds, July 22nd, U of U Special Event Center.
Tickets on sale at Tapehead Company, Soundtrack, Chester's Drawers, General Store, Competition, Dane's Music Downtown, Hart Brothers Music, Cottonwood Mall, Valley Fair Mall, and Sugar House, and the Special Event Center. Tickets $3 and $4. It is reserved seating. The Whiskey A-Go-Go in Hollywood provided the opening for the Doors, who came together during the summer of '65. Organist Ray Manzarek, a Chicagoan who hung around the South Side clubs to hear Muddy Waters, had known Jim Morrison at UCLA, where Jim was an advanced student in the theater arts department. The good thing about film is that there aren't any experts, Morrison has said. There's no authority on film. Anyone can assimilate and contain the whole history of film in himself, which you can't do in other arts. A secondary hinge for the Doors was the Meditation Center, established by the now famous Maharishi, 3rd Street in Los Angeles. Here, Ray Manzarek met the two other members of the group, the drummer, Johnny Densmore, and the fellow who we were interviewing. This interview, incidentally, is about a year old, just before they got canceled out of the Salt Palace for one reason or another, is when I talked to Robert Allen Krieger. Both of them still very strong advocates of meditation. The group went through several transformations and hard times. They were fired by the London Fog, where Morrison's style was rather reserved, if you can imagine. They got fired by Whiskey A-Go-Go, and then they signed with Elektra Records. That's where Morrison's frenzied and erotic presentation took shape. Their debut album was released in January of 1967. It contained Light My Fire. That was their first big single. This invitation to unknown ecstasies was not written by Jim Morrison, as is frequently assumed, but it was written by Robbie Krieger. And Robbie Krieger is also responsible for another of their hits, one called Love Me Two Times. Love Me Two Times, written by Robbie Krieger. But Jim Morrison has himself explored a pretty good theme in Break On Through, the song that we opened up with, Break On Through to the Other Side, and also something else Jim Morrison wrote called Moonlight Drive. The group's most powerful, provocative number is The End. And according to reports, it was Morrison's presentation of this 11.5-minute dramatic dialogue with its pointed, edible imagery that resulted in the group's dismissal from the Whiskey A-Go-Go. Early in 1968, the Doors attained national notoriety as the result of an appearance in New Haven. Backstage, words between Morrison and a policeman led to his being squirted in the face with mace and arrested. Discovering their error, the constabulary apologized and permitted Morrison to continue with the show. But then, during Backdoor Man, Morrison began to tell the audience about the backstage incidents. Contending that his narrative was abusive and inflammatory, the police turned up the lights in the hall, dragged Morrison off stage, and charged him with committing a breach of the peace, resisting a police officer, and giving an indecent or immoral exhibition. Arrested with Jim Morrison were 3 journalists who protested the action of the police. Michael Zurian, music critic of the Village Voice, a guy named Tim Page, a freelance photographer who aroused police ire when he photographed a cop roughing up a kid in the audience, and Yvonne V. Chavier, a researcher for Life magazine, also arrested with Morrison. But that incident didn't hurt the sales of Unknown Soldier, backed with We Could Be So Good Together. That was their spring 1968 release. Jim Morrison was a student of Roman and Greek classics on his own. While a cinema student at UCLA, he thought of rock in terms of Greek drama. In its origin, he says, the Greek theater was a band of worshipers dancing and singing on a threshing floor at the crucial agricultural season. Then one day, a possessed person leaped up out of the crowd and started imitating a god. At first, it was pure song and movement. As cities developed, more people became dedicated to making money, but they had to keep contact with nature somehow. So they had actors to do it for them. I think rock serves the same function, and many became a kind of theater. Morrison's knowledge of Greek drama doubtlessly accounts for certain changes that he's made in his personal appearance, aware that Greek actors used the buskin